Welcome back to Utility Sports, where we cover everything that you need to know about the NBA, NFL, and a ton of other sports, including collegiate athletics, and a ton on the channel here, including NBA mock drafts, NFL mock drafts. This is the place you want to be subscribed for future sports coverage. We cover it all here at Utility Sports, and we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts as well. Make sure you guys are subscribed, leave a like on today's video. And without further ado, let's jump into today's topic. That, of course, is Goran Dragic, who got bought out by the San Antonio Spurs and is now a free agent, which opens up his possibilities of helping out a team in the playoffs, because surprisingly, the Toronto Raptors did not want him to be a part of their future or their team this season. Only played in 5 games in Toronto. Had, mixed results. A 16-point outing, though, in 29 minutes at one point this season. I thought Dragic could really have helped the Toronto Raptors, but they decided to go against him. I know how much they like length and size on the perimeter. So Goran Dragic just did not fit in there. They already had Fred VanVleet. So it became difficult for him to really find a spot in Toronto to get consistent minutes, which is why we're going to look at his career numbers up to this point and why he can help other teams in the league, even though he didn't have a role really in Toronto. In 16 seasons, he's averaged nearly 14 points a game, about 5 assists a game. So 2 really good numbers in terms of career averages for a guard. 3 rebounds a game, and also fairly efficient shooting, 46% from the field, 36.5% from 3. Then you look at his career 77% free throw shooter. Shows that he's a pretty solid sniper when you give him some time and some space. He's a pretty consistent and efficient player, and I think at the point guard spot could really provide a lot of nice backup minutes for a ton of different teams. And I think there are a lot of different options for Goran Dragic this season. To me, he's a player that I think is a no-brainer for a lot of teams to try and want to add. I think there's going to be a serious market for him out there. I think the Lakers are going to want to get involved, but I don't see him as one of the top 5 options for Goran Dragic at this point. I think he's going to try and go to a team that is a lock for the playoffs, and there's a few options out here that I do think make some serious sense for Dragic. So let's get into option 1 here now, and that is, of course, my Dallas Mavericks. Now, these options are not in order of the way I think that they're going to stack up in Dragic's book. These are just the 5 options in general, and I will give you my thoughts on which ones are the best and which ones are the least likely out of these 5. Had the Mavericks not traded Kristaps Porzingis for Spencer Dinwiddie, this would have been option number 1 for Dragic as well. He would have loved to play with Luka Doncic, and I think there would have been a serious role here for him in Dallas when you consider the fact that Jalen Brunson's in the starting lineup. They need a guard off the bench. They opted to go with Dinwiddie for that role over Goran Dragic, and I think that does lessen the likelihood of him landing in Dallas. For me, I really wanted to see Goran Dragic play in Dallas. I thought it would have been a phenomenal fit. Of course, he's spent some time with Luka Doncic, has been his teammate on the Slovenian national team, and I think there would have been a lot of good basketball. Those two could have played together. I also think he could have complemented Jalen Brunson fairly well, and I think he could have kept the bench unit a little more lively in terms of ball movement and ball handling capabilities. However, now with Dallas adding Spencer Dinwiddie, I don't think this is the most likely spot. In fact, out of the 5, I think it's the least likely, which is unfortunate because I think the Mavericks would be better adding Goran Dragic to their roster. I just don't think it's going to get done, unfortunately, now after GM Nico Harrison moved Kristaps Porzingis for both Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans. We've already added some depth that way. Not in love with that move for the Mavericks, especially since Goran Dragic was going to be out here and you could have picked him up in the buyout market. They opted to go that route, though, and in turn, the Dallas Mavericks are left with Spencer Dinwiddie, and I do not think Goran Dragic will be a Dallas Maverick. Moving on to option number 2 here, though, and there is a ton of different good options. I think the Chicago Bulls actually appear on this list now, and the reason for that, a variety of reasons. Specifically, Alex Caruso's injured, which is a big thing. You also look at Lonzo Ball's injury. The Bulls right now are in dire need of some guard minutes to eat up some of the injuries from those 2 guys. Of course, I would assume he's been playing really well. And they also have Kobe White there, but I do think they could still use another guard. Billy Donovan loves to run a lot of guards in his lineups. Of course, a few years back was very famous for his 3-guard lineup in Oklahoma City, where you had Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Dennis Schroeder, and even would put Lou Dort in some of those lineups as well. So sometimes would even have 4 guards on the floor in that case. And I think that Chicago here, they could use Goran Dragic's help for the rest of the regular season. However, when they do get healthy, Dragic probably doesn't have as big of a role there as he would like. So I actually don't see this as the most likely landing spot either, even though I do think there is some merit to him potentially going here based off of their current need for some guard minutes due to injuries. I think the Bulls would love to bring him in. I just think Dragic is going to consider his options and really think about where he's going to get the most play time to help him going into this offseason to get another new contract. One option here for that would be the Los Angeles Clippers, and it's very possible they would even be interested in signing him to a 2-year deal because, of course, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George out right now. They would love to bring him back not only this year, but going into next season as well. They would get early bird rights on him on a 1-year deal, and I think there would be some merit to that as well for the Clippers because he could help them. I do think that they need another guard in the fold there. Of course, Reggie Jackson's been playing really good basketball, but I think they could use another point guard. Patrick Beverley, the fact that they traded him away, now I know they brought in Norm Powell, but I'm talking point guard specifically here. Another ball handler for the Clippers would help them a lot, especially come playoff time. If you do get Paul George back, Goran Dragic could still be a very nice piece for you in the playoffs this season, which they're currently the 8th seed in the West. So it's still not out of the question that they can make the playoffs even without Kawhi Leonard, and they missed Paul George for a significant amount of time. A lot of credit due to the Clippers because they've been playing really good basketball without their stars. And I think Dragic could help cement that even further. And then I think there would be a lot of interest by the Clippers, specifically their management there, Lawrence Frank and Jerry West, to try and bring Goran Dragic back again next season for his 17th season in the league, just because he would help them as another ball handler, knows his role, knows how to play the game offensively, very smooth and consistent, and I think would be a really big help to them for regular season minutes, even when Kawhi Leonard and Paul George would be back healthy next season. So I think this would be a good long-term option for Dragic if he does want to extend his playing career. I think the Clippers would be a very good landing spot for him. I just don't necessarily know if I think it's going to happen because I think there's a few other ones on this list that are a little more likely, and we'll get into those here. Option number 4, the Miami Heat. Goran Dragic, after stepping away from the Raptors, has been working out in Miami. Of course, has spent multiple seasons with Miami Heat and found a lot of success with them under head coach Erik Spoelstra. They did trade him for Kyle Lowry, so it gets a little confusing there. And one thing about this is, had the Raptors bought him out, he could not have signed with Miami. But the fact that Toronto's traded him to the Spurs means that he can now re-sign with the Miami Heat. He cannot sign with the Toronto Raptors now at this point for a lesser valued contract, but he can go back to Miami now because he got traded again, which opens up the door here for a potential reunion between the two sides, And I think Goran Dragic back in Miami does have some merit and again does make some sense. However, they did just sign Caleb Martin from his 2-way contract to the active roster, which does complicate things a little bit here. And I think that move indicates that they're not necessarily looking to add a guy in the buyout market, but Goran Dragic, he is a notable available player. They have had some serious contributions this year from Gabe Vincent, also Max Strus, so I don't think this is the most likely landing spot either. However, his familiarity there, you could just reintroduce him back in. He's going to know a ton of your sets. This is one of the most seamless fits here because he's already been there before. Knows the team, knows the organization, knows the arena, knows the training facilities. This would be the most seamless one, but based off the Heat's current roster and their most recent move for Caleb Martin, I don't think that they actually go ahead and make this move, which leads us to the one that I think is the most likely, and that is the Milwaukee Bucks, the reigning NBA champions. They need a backup point guard. They traded Dante DiVincenzo to the Kings to bring in Serge Ibaka and add a little bit more size and a little bit more of an insurance policy behind Brook Lopez, who's been out with a back injury. And I think they could use another guard there as well, someone who's a veteran. Mike Budenholzer, he last year trusted Jeff Teague quite a bit. I think that there's an upgrade possibility here with Goran Dragic. I think that they go get Goran Dragic this buyout market. I think he will be a Milwaukee Buck. If I had to bet, I would put my money on him landing in Milwaukee. And remember, I'm a Mavericks fan, so there's no bias here. I want him in Dallas, but I do not think he'll actually land in Dallas. I think Chicago is interesting. Again, I think the Clippers would be interesting in Miami as well. But Milwaukee is really the clear one here for me. They need a backup point guard, and that's what he's going to be. He's going to come in off the bench. He can give you 7 to 8 points a night, and that's going to be extremely valuable there in Milwaukee, especially as we get toward the back end of the regular season here. They've had to deal with some injuries. I think Milwaukee could also use a forward, someone who's a 4, to try and throw at Kevin Durant, but Goran Dragic, his offensive capabilities alone would be enough. I could see him fitting in a lineup with Chris Middleton and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I could see him fitting next to Serge Ibaka or Brook Lopez. He fits very well into this fold because he's able to shoot the 3 ball. He's going to get a ton of good looks, and he's also able to manipulate the pick and roll. which is something we saw Mike Budenholzer and the Bucks go to more last playoffs than they ever had before, with Giannis playing that pick and roll center build. I think Giannis and Dragic could really fit together well in that as well. Probably not going to be a ton of volume for those style pick and rolls between Dragic and Giannis, but getting a veteran point guard who, is going to have that instant chemistry because he's been around the league so long, knows exactly where players want that little dump pass dropped off, and putting him next to an athlete like Giannis is going to get a lot of success out of him as well. Again, he's a solid offensive player, solid shooter, good playmaker. He can do a bunch for an NBA team, and I think Milwaukee is the best landing spot for Goran Dragic during this buyout market. We are going to have more buyout videos as well. We're going to talk more about every single guy who I think is a buyout candidate. The Dragic one just came extremely quickly, so he beat me to it a little bit. Hopefully you guys did enjoy today's video, though. Thank you again so much for watching. If you did enjoy, leave a like. Also subscribe to the channel if you're new, and then comment. Leave a comment in this section where you think Goran Dragic will ultimately sign. Again, I think it's going to be the Milwaukee Bucks. Maybe there's a team on here I didn't mention that you think is a possibility. Perhaps Boston, perhaps the New York Knicks. There's definitely possibilities out there. Let me know your thoughts, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.